Hello Internet, so nice to see you. A number of you have asked about my guitar and the fact that it is scalloped. What does scallop even mean? It means that some wood has been removed from the neck, just in between the frets, to make more space under my fingers. Now, why would somebody do something like that to their guitar, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of having a scalloped neck? Let's see all that. First of all, you can buy a scallop guitar already out of the factory. There are a few models who have that, but you can also have these made. Some people do it by themselves, which is something I don't really recommend unless you are a luthier and you're expert on this, and I disclaim every responsibility if you do it. Personally, I had these made. A great luthier named Jim Lombard did this for me. Thank you, Jim. And he did a great job at it. It's perfect, essentially. And so, why I had this done on my guitar? Scalloping makes some techniques on the guitar easier and some other a bit harder. And it's a trade-off depending on what kind of playing experience you want. By the way, this is not a matter of tone. Scalloping the guitar has zero influence on tone. The guitar sounds exactly the same before and after. So if you're afraid this will ruin the sound of your guitar, no, don't worry. There is zero impact on the tone if it's done properly. But it does make some techniques much easier. So every kind of bend or vibrato becomes much easier. Why? Because you can have more leverage on those strings. Whenever I bend a string or I play some vibrato, I can literally put my finger under the string because now I have more space between the fretboard and the string, and I have much more leverage to play a bend or to play a vibrato. So the strings feel much lighter in this respect. I have a gauge 10 here, but it feels like I'm bending on a gauge 9, essentially. They feel super light in this respect, and it's much easier to bend, it's much easier to play a vibrato. And that's it for the advantages, essentially. There is no other advantage to scalloping a guitar. There are a few disadvantages on the other hand. The fact is, since now you have less wood under your fingers, you cannot fret a string and anchor your finger on the wood under the string, like many people do without even realizing, which means that the string becomes more unstable. Okay? So whenever you play a scalloped neck guitar, you need to make sure that your technique is more precise and your touch is much lighter. Because you can push the guitar out of tune in two different ways, not even one. So, what are those two ways? Well, let's say that you have a very heavy hand and you start pressing a lot on the string. Since there is space under the fret, you can push the string beyond what is normal, and then you can start bending those strings. This happens especially with gauge 8 or gauge 9 strings, so with very light gauges. It's much harder to bend on this one that has gauge 10, but it does happen if I really want to. So I can play a chord, and if I really press on my fingers here, it goes out of tune. Because by pressing too much, I'm bending the strings. And that's one way you can go out of tune, by pressing too much. The other way you can go out of tune is by bending in the normal direction, meaning bending in those directions, because again, the string is more unstable. So you can play a chord, let's say any kind of chord, like, and then some of your fingers can slip on one direction or another, like this. And then the chord will sound out of tune. So you want to make sure that whenever you play a chord, or anything for that matter, on a scalloped neck guitar, your strength goes down perpendicularly into the fretboard and not on the sides, because it's much easier to, again, bend these notes without even noticing it. Another thing that becomes slightly more difficult are slides. Now, this is not a big problem at all. I can still slide however I want. But it's a bit less comfortable on your fingers because the neck feels like a bit rougher, okay? because it's like having super tall frets in this sense, and so it feels like you are really hitting on all those frets whenever you slide. Again, it's not a big problem and you get used to it in few minutes if ever, but some people really hate that. So again, it's something you want to take into consideration. Now, how do you know if you are going to like a scalloped fretboard or not? There is a very simple test you can do, a question you can ask yourself and see if you're gonna like a scalloped fretboard. And it's very easy. You want to go in any kind of music shop and try 2 different guitars. Even if they don't have a scalloped guitar, you try 2 different guitars, one with very narrow frets and one with very tall frets, okay? And you see which one you like best. If you like the narrow fret guitar best, you're gonna hate a scalloped guitar. And if you like the tall fret guitar better, you're probably gonna like a scalloped guitar, because scalloping is like having super high, super tall frets. That's the idea. You take away this wood from the bottom of the fretboard essentially, and it's like you have a much taller fret. So if you like tall frets, you're probably gonna like a scalloped guitar. If you don't, you are not going to like, and that's how you'd know it beforehand. Now that's pretty much everything there is to it. It's not really rocket science. Personally, I love this scallop fretboard. For me, it's much more comfortable to play, and it allows me to play hours and hours. I played a 4-hour gig at New Year's Eve, and I played a 2 hours musical production recently, and this guitar made it super easy for me because I could bend the strings for all the time and I wasn't getting tired because I had way more leverage for bending. Again, this makes it easier for me, but it could make it harder for you. It depends on your technique. Playing a guitar with a scalloped fretboard is something that you want to try at least once in your musical life. This is something that can also highlight some problem in your technique so that you can correct it later. Like if you are pressing too much and so the guitar goes out of tune, or if your strength is not going down perpendicularly, but sometimes you're sliding left or right here on the fretboard and again bending the strings. This is something that again is super evident on a scallop guitar, especially with light strings. So if you train yourself, if you play a lot on a scallop fretboard, you're gonna eliminate those problems because they're gonna become super evident. And in fact, that's one way that this guitar helped me having a better technique. But like many other things in music, it's a matter of taste if you like to play on a scallop guitar or not. I have many other guitars, and this is the only one that I scalloped. The other guitars are fine that way, in my opinion, and I like having different experiences whenever I play a guitar, and I have different guitars for different things, like many of you, I guess. And this guitar is great scallop, other guitars may not be as good for me because I'm playing different things on those guitars. Now, if you like this video, smash on that like button, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to share this video on Facebook or any other social media you might be on. This is Tommaso Zilli of MusicTheory4Guitar.com, and until next time, enjoy!